Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the co-chairs of the Joint Select Committee for holding this hearing and allowing members of Congress to share their ideas and proposals. Look, I got here 7.5 years ago as a business guy who balances budgets, who makes things work, and who continues to believe we need budgets. The problem is our budgetary system is broken. I spent a lot of time since being elected here of looking at financial processes, everything from how we can develop a financial statement to how we can develop a process where we can start with a budget. But let's first say, you can't even prepare a budget if you don't know where you're at. And one of the biggest problems I said in Washington is most members of Congress don't really know financially where we are, because we don't have a fiscal accounting, we don't have a fiscal financial statement, and we don't have a fiscal address. So what I am proposing is two bills that actually I think fix the budget process. Number one, you first have to have awareness. I believe it's critical the American people in Congress are aware of the financial system that our country faces. So I have introduced a bill that would just do that. It's pretty simple. All it does is require the Comptroller General of the General Accounting Office to provide a fiscal State of the Nation address to a joint session of Congress on an annual basis. The presentation would include an analysis of the condition of our country's fiscal status, including our budget deficits, long-term fiscal projections for our social insurance programs. It would be a presentation of our fiscal issues, and it would be public for all Americans. Right now, our country is in the cups of national debt crisis. By 2023, the CBO projects that we will spend more paying down our interest than we will on our national defense. By 2028, the debt held by public as a share of GDP will increase to 96%, the largest since 1946. Most members of Congress don't know that. By the way, I've also said that every member of Congress should be on the Budget Committee at least one cycle. Most members of Congress are not aware of that. And as lawmakers, we have a moral responsibility to address these changes and work together to find bipartisan solutions to stave off this pending crisis. A strong first step would be requiring Congress to come together once a year to hear from a nonpartisan Comptroller General what the fiscal state of the country is in order to highlight the crisis that we face and put members on notice to the public that this is an issue that needs to be addressed. The best way to tackle a problem is to first shine light on the problem. At my request, the Comptroller General has testified before the House Budget Committee in recent years, and I believe that this issue is too important that the full Congress not be made aware of it. Some will say a joint session of Congress is not the right venue for this type of speech. I would highly disagree. I would counter by asking doubters why they believe this isn't as important enough issue to convene a joint session and why they are afraid to set the new precedent. I have almost 200 co-sponsors on this bill. The first time I dropped it last cycle. This cycle, I'm getting close to 200 bipartisan Democrats and Republicans who agree to this. We shouldn't be afraid of doing it. Additionally, the legislation was included in the 2016 Budget Committee Budget Reform White Paper, has been endorsed by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the AICPA, the Concord Coalition, and the National Taxpayer Union. It's something we should not be afraid of. It's something we should be looking forward to seeing every year so we know where we have to start before we do the budget process. Along with that awareness, I think we need to do a better job at holding ourselves accountable. The second bill I've introduced would make Congress actually abide by the budget that we pass. Since 1974, we waive our budgets. Every time we turn around, it gets waived in budget in the committee anyway, it gets waived, and that's a problem. We can't waive the committee. Too often, the Rules Committee waives budget-related issues, preventing members of Congress to object to legislation that breaks the budget. If you want to break the budget, that's all well and good. In the business world, you break it all the time, but what you do is you come before management, which is the Congress, and you tell people why. This bill would allow members of the House to call for a recorded vote on these waivers and put members on the record whether they wish to waive the budget. As someone who has spent my career in the business world, I believe it's important that we pass a budget, then follow the budget. This bipartisan legislation will allow Congress responsibility to ourselves and ensure that we actually follow our budget. I commend the work that the Joint Committee is doing in reforming our broken budget process. I believe that these two measures that I discussed today should be considered as part of the broader reforms that are needed to fix the budget process. I want to thank you again for your time, and I yield back.